Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Whole Magazine. I am your host, Brandon, and it's another solo episode tonight. But what I have planned for you is not really a news coverage thing, as this nothing I'm covering is news, but more or less a sort of monologue that I have collected. You may have noticed from the title, it's rather dramatic. It's a dramatic title, I'll admit to you. But what we are going to be talking about is nevertheless incredibly important and things that don't get said enough because it's hidden through fog, it's hidden through noise, and realistically speaking, it's something that only now people have really started noticing more, which, hence the last election. But we're going to dive right in. First up, we have a bit of a peek at something that kind of skated by, but Megyn Kelly kind of swooped onto it, and we'll be looking at one of her clips here in a second. Joe Biden's infrastructure improvement bill, which was effectively something that was supposed to give a bunch of improvements to, say, broadband connectivity. Let's just see what Jon Stewart has to say about that and what he sees, because it's fantastic.
Ezra Klein of the New York Times, who's on this book tour, making a bunch of stops, swung on by Jon Stewart's podcast, I guess. I don't follow Jon Stewart at all, and it makes me a very happy person. But there was the following exchange.
Step 4 has to review and approve and award, again, planning grants, not broadband grants, planning grants. Step 8 is states must submit an initial proposal to the NTIA. Then,
is that the result of their $5 million planning fund? This
I
initial
assume,
proposal?
but then what was the 5-year plan?
And what the fuck did they apply for? What was their NOFO?
Like, if the 5-year action plan isn't the initial proposal, then what's the 5-year action
Forget
plan?
NOFO.
Okay.
MOFO.
Step 10, states must publish their own map and allow internal challenges to their own maps.
Wait, who's challenging it within the state?
Well, organized interest groups, environmental groups, like I don't know who specifically, but literally anybody. This is,
right.
I want to say something because it's very important I say this. This is the Biden administration's process for its own bill. They wanted this to happen. This is how liberal government works now. This is a bill passed by Democrats with a regulatory structure written by Democratic administration. Okay. Step 12, states must run a competitive sub-granting process.
Oh my fucking God. At step 12, after all this has been done, I'm speechless.
This is the $42 billion expansion of broadband internet service under Joe Biden, which has yet to connect a single household. Ezra Klein there detailing how in the end, only 3 of the 56 jurisdictions that did apply for it actually finished the process by the end of 2024.
Even Jon Stewart, right, hardly a right-wing commentator, can't believe what he's seeing or hearing when it comes to the Biden administration's handling of this so-called infrastructure improvement bill. Even the part, especially the part where it was supposed to bring broadband internet to more Americans as the goal, yet no one actually went through with it because it was a convoluted process that wasn't designed at all to actually be used. It was a showpiece. It's like going to a dealership and the cars in there don't have engines. It wasn't actually supposed to do anything. It was supposed to give the guise or the impression that the administration wants to get things done, but actually do nothing at all. It was supposed to be like revolutionary, right? That this single piece of legislation and this plan was going to be something that no other person did, and it was groundbreaking, and yet it came up to be nothing. This is liberal bureaucracy at work. Is you create this system, right? You create this process, make it as convoluted as possible, and make it so difficult and ridiculous that no one wants to go through with it. And ergo, you don't actually spend the money on improving Americans' lives. and you just get to go and use maybe the money in other interest groups when the plan expires. It's ridiculous. It's a pattern. It's big promises, bigger price tags, and nothing to show for it at all. Democrats are floundering right now because the jig is up. You know, for a long time, Democrats and many of their allies in government have been able to get away with corruption that was hiding in plain sight. Why? Why? Because there just wasn't a big enough spotlight on them. But that has changed recently. The American people evidently have woken up. And now, under more scrutiny than ever, we're seeing exactly how deep the rot goes. Take a look at how some of these sacred government institutions, the ones the Democrats cherish so much, are collapsing under the weight of their own incompetence. These aren't just inefficient bureaucracies. They're lifelines for a party that strives on big government and massive spending. And now, as those agencies come under fire, we're learning why they fought so hard to protect them. Just look at USAID. It's being audited. And guess what? The more we look, the more corruption we find. It's becoming painfully obvious that some of these so-called foreign aid programs are a little more than vehicles for money laundering. Billions and billions of taxpayer dollars are sent overseas, allegedly to help improve other nations. And yet, nothing really changes. No results, no accountability. So where is all that money really going? People are starting to ask the right questions, like, how does a member of Congress amass a fortune of $10 million or even $20 million on a salary of just $176,000 a year? It doesn't add up. Not unless something else is going on. Insider trading, money laundering mayhaps, corrupt contracts. These are questions that deserve real answers. The truth is, this system wasn't built to serve the American people. It was built to serve the political elite. But now the lights are on, and the public is paying attention. And that's exactly what they're afraid of. And we hear time and time again, right? They still are continuing to try the old, tired lies, like Trump being a fascist. From the very moment Donald Trump announced his campaign back in 2016, the left wasted no time labeling him a fascist. They threw everything they had, neo-Nazi, authoritarian, tyrant, you name it. And here we are, years later, and they're still clinging to the same tired script. But the American people, they're not buying it anymore. The recent election made that crystal clear. The media, the liberal establishment, the activist class, they still haven't figured out that the people are seeing right through their nonsense. They scream dictator every time Trump takes an action. But here's the truth. Every move he's making in his second term is fully within the bounds of the Constitution. Let's be clear. Trump is making changes within the executive branch. He's not seizing power from Congress. He's not rewriting laws by fiat. He's leading the branch he was elected to lead. That's not authoritarian. That's not tyranny. That's how the government is supposed to function. But liberals don't care about that distinction. They see leadership they don't like. They cry fascism. Meanwhile, Trump's administration continues to be one of the most transparent we've had in decades, maybe ever. Compare that to the Biden administration, which operated behind closed doors, pushed through executive orders with barely any explanation, and tried to force vaccine mandates on American workers through OSHA without proper debate or justification. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. Trump says what he's doing. He does it openly, and that terrifies the left, because the more honest and direct he is, the more the American people start paying attention. We have their old, tired lies about COVID-19. Remember that? We're just going back in time, folks. We're recalling the history books, least we forget. The COVID-19 pandemic wasn't just a health crisis. It was a crystal clear example of how far the left will go to push repetitive, baseless narratives under the guise of science. From the very beginning, we were fed a steady stream of so-called solutions that, through nothing more than basic common sense, many of us knew didn't add up. social distancing rules that made no scientific sense, cloth masks that we were told could protect us, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, and of course, the vaccine, sold as the ultimate silver bullet, a cure-all, the holy grail. But by 6 months in, the data was already there. We could see that many of these measures weren't based in science, they were based in control. The plexiglass barriers in stores and restaurants? A joke. The claim that the virus couldn't travel more than 6 feet? Nonsense. Yet the narrative never changed. Not during the later part of the Trump administration, and certainly not under Biden's. The Biden administration doubled down, even with mounting evidence that these measures were ineffective or outright false. They kept the restrictions in place. And that told us everything we needed to know. COVID-19, what the Democrats truly crave: control. The power to decide whose job is essential and whose isn't. The authority to lock people in their homes, shut down small businesses, and call it safety. It was pseudo martial law, and they loved every second of it. And when the Republicans began to speak out, when they questioned the science, they were smeared, labeled anti-vax, science deniers, or worse. But what Democrats were really defending wasn't science, it was obedience. It was the appeal to authority. If you didn't have the right credentials, if you weren't the right kind of expert, you weren't allowed to speak. You didn't have a voice. You didn't have a right to challenge the narrative. That's not science. That's not democracy. That's control disguised as compassion. And the American people won't fall for it again. Another tired lie. One of the most powerful tools the left uses today isn't policy, it's deception. The liberals' frequent, deliberate lies about political life in America have become a weapon, a cudgel, a method of control over the masses. They love to claim they're the party of the people, the defenders of the working class. But if you look at their track record over the past 30 years, the truth tells a very different story. They say they fight for everyday Americans. They say they want to lift up the poor and support the middle class. But when they hold the reins of power, when they can actually make real change, nothing happens. Why? Because they never intended to make it happen in the first place. They have the influence, they have the platform. They sit in some of the most powerful positions in government, and yet the people they claim to care about the most, the everyday Americans, the ones trying to make ends meet, keep getting left behind. Instead of passing clean, effective legislation that would actually help the working class, they pack their bills with nonsense, provisions that have nothing to do with the issue at hand, and Republicans push back when they refuse to support bloated, dangerous legislation. The Democrats turn around and cry foul. See, the Republicans are blocking progress. They don't care. But the truth is, those bills are never just about one thing. They're layered with radical proposals that would affect far more than just one issue. They know it. We know it. And when Republicans call it out, they're not being obstructionists. They're doing their job. It's not about helping people. It's about appearances. It's about controlling the narrative. And if the people suffer while the left plays political theater, that's just collateral damage to them. One of the most persistent and ineffectual lies pushed by liberals in the establishment media is the idea that America is a nation still steeped in racism. The racial minorities that are systemically oppressed, that success is out of reach for Black Americans, and that the only way forward is through government assistance and Democrat leadership. They ignore the reality that America elected a Black president twice. They ignore the fact that racial minorities are represented across Congress, in government, in business, in media. Yet they cling to a narrative that has been outdated for decades, and they do it for one reason: control. They want minorities to believe that the system is so broken, so rigged against them, that their only hope is to vote Democrat. That message is woven into nearly every Democratic campaign in modern history. It's not empowerment, it's manipulation. They say Republicans are the racists. They say conservatives want to bring back segregation and Jim Crow. But let's talk about history. It was Democrats who led the longest filibuster in American history to block the Civil Rights Act. Democrats stood in the way of progress. Yet somehow, they've managed to rewrite that history and pin the blame elsewhere. And their modern version of racism is not in burning crosses or slurs. It's in the quiet, patronizing belief that minorities can't succeed without them. That's the covert racism they won't talk about. Telling someone they can't make it in this country without a government handout, that they're helpless because of the color of their skin, is not compassion, it's control. They thrive on division. Racial tension is a campaign strategy. Because if they drop the race card, if they stop pushing identity politics, what do they even have left? What's the Democrats' stance on foreign policy? It seems to be weaken America, undermine our global leadership, open our markets without protection, and let every other country use us as their economic safety net. To liberals, America should be the world's babysitter, even if it means sacrificing our own strength. And on economic policy, they love to scream that the top 1% aren't paying their fair share, even though the same 1% already pay 98% of federal income taxes. But when they do get in power, when they can actually pass legislation, what do? They don't go after the ultra rich. No, those are their donors. Instead, they go after the companies, the corporations that create jobs, drive innovation, and fuel our economy. Here's what they don't want you to know. A corporation isn't a billionaire. When you hike corporate taxes, you're not hurting the CEO. You're choking the entire company. You're slashing its ability to grow, expand, and hire more people. That's how you stall job creation. That's how you hurt the very people that you claim to fight for. And we saw the opposite under Trump. Lower corporate taxes led to explosive growth, businesses expanded, job creation soared, wages went up by an average of $5,000 for working Americans in the middle and lower classes. Democrats want you to think that they're the party of the people. But when you follow the money, when you look at who they really protect, it's not you. It's the donors. It's the 1%. It's the narrative. And at the end of the day, their policies don't empower Americans. They hold them back. It's amazing how quickly the narrative also shifts when things don't go the left's way. After the recent election, we started hearing a brand new talking point from liberals and the media machine. Suddenly, Republicans had been in the control of media all along. That's right. After years of denying it, now they're claiming that conservatives somehow had a stranglehold on not just legacy media, but the majority of media that Americans consume. Let's be honest. That couldn't be farther from reality. For years, Democrats and liberals have dominated the media space, not just in newsrooms, but in the entertainment industry, Hollywood, late night television, and even children's programming. They've had the megaphone. They've had the studios. They've had the cultural influence. They've used it to push their ideology into every corner of American life. Just look at Disney. This is a company that once stood for family entertainment, now being used as a delivery system for liberal messaging. They injected identity politics and woke ideology into content aimed at children. A gay kiss in a Buzz Lightyear movie? Was that about storytelling or about sending a message to parents who didn't ask for politics in their kids' film? But still, the left insists it's conservatives who control the narrative, that the reason they lost ground is because the right manipulated the media. No. What's really happening is that Americans stopped buying the product. They stopped listening to the spin. They tuned out of the legacy media because it lost credibility. They stopped taking Hollywood seriously because it became preachy instead of entertaining. They voted with their wallets, and now they voted at the ballot box. The old tricks didn't work this time. The slogans, the scare tactics, the same worn-out accusations. The American people saw through it. And now, as the liberal media scrambles to figure out how they lost the narrative, their new excuse is to pretend they never had it in the first place. But we know better. We've watched them control the cultural conversation for years. What we're seeing now isn't a shift in control. It's a reckoning. It's a rejection. The American people are done being lectured, done being manipulated, and done being told what to think. And whether Hollywood listens to the drop in ticket sales or Democrats listen to the results of the election, one thing is crystal clear. The era of blind obedience to liberal media is over. Maybe at least for a majority of Americans, but for those who still voted for Kamala, it looks like it's still going strong. In their never-ending effort to sow division in this country, liberals and Democrats have set their sights on one of the most successful systems the world has ever seen: capitalism. They say capitalism is broken, that it doesn't offer equal opportunity, that it's the root of all their problems. And what do they offer in its place? Socialism, communism, systems that have failed time and time again in history, systems that promise everything and deliver nothing but misery. What's their real grievance with capitalism? That some people are wealthy while they are not? They say it's not fair, that no one should have that much money. But here's what they never tell you. Under socialism, the rich don't disappear. They just become government officials. The same wealth they claim to despise gets concentrated into the hands of those who run the system. They like to say, in socialism, the people own factories, the companies, the industries, but that's a lie. It's a smokescreen. The government owns them. The elites still reap the rewards, not the workers. Under socialism, everyone gets paid the same, regardless of skill, effort, or contribution. And when you take away incentives, you crush productivity. You eliminate innovation, and you end up with long lines for bread, ration goods, and shortages of basic necessities. Don't believe me? Ask anyone who lived through the Soviet Union. That's the truth they don't want to talk about. In practice, socialism and communism don't raise up the lower middle classes, they crush them. And the elites in power, they get richer, more powerful, more untouchable. Capitalism, on the other hand, is far from perfect, but it works. It allows for class mobility. It gives people the ability to climb the ladder. It rewards hard work, innovation, and determination. In America, your success isn't tied to your birthright, it's tied to your effort. And that's what makes this nation different from every other on earth. But liberals don't like that idea. They don't like the notion that outcomes should be earned. They champion equity instead of equality, where everyone gets the same result, regardless of how much they contribute. In their world, doing 25% of the work should get you the same reward as someone doing 100%. That's not fairness, that's theft. A system that doesn't create prosperity, it creates resentment, it stifles progress, and it punishes the very thing that drives success: ambition. The United States is the most upwardly mobile country in the world because of capitalism. It's the reason why millions come here with nothing and build a life. It's the reason innovation happens here first. And it's the reason why we must protect this system, not tear it down to chase utopian fantasies that history has already exposed as disasters. You've heard the line before, the top 1% don't pay their fair share. It's the rallying cry of the liberal left. They repeat it over and over, hoping no one stopped to ask, is that even true? Well, let's look at the facts. The top 1% of earners in this country pay 98% of all federal income taxes. You heard that right, 90. Meanwhile, the middle and lower classes, most receive a tax return every year. That 1%, they never see one. They don't get a break in April. They cut checks, big ones. But here's where the hypocrisy really kicks in. The same Democrats who rail against the wealthy are the ones handing them the loopholes. Why? Because those same wealthy individuals are major donors to Democrat campaigns. When a Republican uses a tax break, it's corruption. When a Democrat billionaire's donor does it, suddenly it's just part of the system. Now, here comes Trump, again, doing what he said he'd do and then some. With affordability in America spiraling under this current administration, Trump is stepping up, the former administration, rather. Trump is stepping up with real tax reform, cutting federal income tax for Americans making under $150,000 a year and making tips non-taxable. That's just not bold. It's one of the most working class friendly policies we've seen in modern presidential history. You want to help servers, bartenders, hourly workers, single moms, young people grinding day in and day out? This is how you do it. And where have the Democrats been on this? Nowhere. Despite their claims of being the party for the people, they've never taken action like this, because at the end of the day, they're more interested in making promises than keeping them. The proposal is also a stroke of political genius, a real 3D chess move. Let's see what happens when this tax reform bill hits Congress. Let's watch who supports it. Are Democrats going to vote for it? Are Republicans? This is the ultimate litmus test to see who's really for the American people and who just says they are. Imagine for a moment keeping more of your paycheck, seeing your take-home pay rise because federal taxes are lifted off your back. And yet, liberals are losing their minds over it. Why? Because it's Trump who proposed it. It's Trump derangement syndrome in full force. When someone does something objectively good for the country, but the left is too blinded by hatred and media-fed rhetoric to even acknowledge it. And while Democrats scream about fairness, they remain opposed to tariffs, which are one of the only tools we have to balance the scales in global trade. Every other country has tariffs on America. But when America puts tariffs on foreign products, the left loses it, because deep down, they've convinced themselves that America should always be the one sacrificing, always bending over backward for the rest of the world. Let's talk history. The first federal income tax in this country was introduced during the Civil War, and it ended shortly after. But it was a Democrat-led Congress that brought it back, trading tariffs for income tax. And unlike back then, this tax didn't go away. It grew. It expanded. What started as a tax on the ultra-wealthy became a tax on nearly every working American. Now Trump is saying, enough. Let's balance the checkbook. Let's bring fiscal responsibility back. But instead of support, he's met with outrage. Because again, it's not about policy to the left. It's not about the results. It's about who proposes it. If it's Trump, it must be bad. That's the game they've played for years. But the American people, we're not playing anymore. We're watching. We're paying attention. And come election time, we'll be voting. We voted accordingly, as you can see. Let's talk about something that's also been on my mind quite a bit, the contradiction in how liberal and Democrat-led places handle their big issues. Take Washington State as an example. You've got liberals and Democrats saying global warming is a crisis and we can't ignore. If they really wanted to push for solutions without any ulterior motives, you'd think they'd make it easier for people to go green. But that's not what's happening. In these states and cities, the people who try to join in, like electric vehicle owners, end up getting hit hard. I talked to a guy in Washington with a 2023 Tesla Model Y. He told me it cost him $1,000 a year to renew his tabs. My 2020 Nissan Murano, which runs on gas, cost me $120. The difference? The state knows electric drivers skip out on gas taxes, so they jack up the fees instead. If the idea is to encourage cleaner energy, this isn't the way to do it. Then there's California. They passed a law requiring solar panels on new housing developments, a solid move for solar energy. But there was talk of adding a solar tax on top of that. So your house costs more because of the mandate, and then you get taxed extra just for using sunlight. I'm not sure if that tax went through or if it got a lot of pushback, but it's the kind of thing that makes you wonder. Housing in California is already out of control, and this doesn't help. What ties this together is revenue. In these states, it feels like the priority isn't the environment, it's money. They roll out policies and programs, but then they turn around and mandate it tougher and make it tougher for the other people to opt in. If they were serious about green energy being the future, they'd find ways to support it, not penalize it. Look at gas taxes. California, Washington, Oregon, they're sky high. Gas around Sacramento was $6 or $7 not too long ago. It's hard to see that anything but a cash. It's hard to see it as anything but a cash grab. If they really wanted to push environmental change, they wouldn't make it so expensive for people to take part. Well, that was a bit of a rant, I must admit, but it was good. I had a good time. I hope you did too. Before we close up, there was a video that I had seen of, liberal media, social media, haha, got you content, where somebody was making a ridiculous, in theory, funny face with the idea that Republicans talk about economic responsibility, blah, 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 yet all Republican states are so poor. And it seems this person is conflating cost of living with poverty. Interesting. And for the viewers at home, I would like you to do a little bit of an exercise with me. Set a budget for a house, say $400,000 to $500,000. I want you to go to California on Zillow and look around. See what you'll get. Maybe a 2-bedroom, single bathroom house in a city area. Go outside and see what else you can find for $500,000. Now do the same thing, except for, say, Tennessee or Texas. It isn't a poverty thing. That money goes farther in those states than, say, in California. Look at gas. It costs people an arm and a leg just to go to work in California. Gas in Texas and Tennessee's what, like $2? It has nothing to do with a poverty thing. It has everything to do with those state legislators trying to squeeze their citizens dry because they just want more tax revenue for their little pet projects. But that's going to be it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Make sure you check out the website at www.thewholemag.com, where you'll be able to have access to all those good articles that we have. Thank you. And as always, have a good one.